Welcome, everyone. I want to talk to you today about my life and how I got to standing in front of you. I want to talk to you about when was the first time you ever learned and thought about reading? When you recognize words, whether it's Curious George or Dr. Seuss. Art?
When was the first time?
First time you ever remember?
About a week ago.
Exactly. Wanda?
Years.
Give me an age.
6.
6. Joe?
5.
Carl?
4 or 5.
Touch on.
As long as I remember.
As long as I remember. I was less than 1. I know it's hard to believe, but I remember this story. Well, I don't necessarily remember, but I've been told this story by my mom. That one day she came home, and my dad, who was a psychiatrist, had this library at home with these bookshelves just lined like this room with books. And she came home, and there I was sitting in the middle of the room looking at all the books, and I had pulled them all down. And I looked out at her and I said, all words, no pictures.
At age 1.
By the time I had reached age 3, I had advanced. I was already bicycling without training wheels. I, though, learned a big lesson about life at that point. I was told, I was riding with my family, to go ahead and just ride ahead, but don't go past the bridge that we were riding on this bike trail. Well, about 12 miles later, I finally realized that the bridge they were talking about was a little culvert bridge. It was about as long as this table. I was thinking the bridge in D.C., Woodrow Wilson Bridge over the Potomac River. I learned at that point about the words perseverance, and more importantly, listen to directions. By the time I had reached age 4, I had started to drive. And by age 4 and a half, I had learned that the police were somebody to run away from. This came about when I was driving a 1986 Ford Escort station wagon that my friend had affectionately named the Red Cherry. And he had these 2 big stickers that were red cherries stuck on the side windows. We were driving across a causeway bridge down in Florida. The causeway is what separates the peninsula area from the mainland. And it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I was going a little bit too fast because at 4 I didn't really understand the speedometer issue. And it came across the bridge, and I was far enough ahead of traffic that the police officer was very easy to tag me as the one who was going a little bit too fast. 65, 45 zone, something like that. Unfortunately for him, by the time he could turn his lights on and could turn into traffic, traffic had caught up to him. And I was a good half mile ahead of him. So what did I do? What any good 4-year-old would do. Run away from authority. I made a right turn, turned into some neighborhood, turned into some guy's driveway, and 10 minutes later, I was free as a bird. Off to Denny's to have a grand slam. By age 4 and a half, I was also drinking. I was working on a tall ship. That's actually where I learned how and celebrate Columbus Day, because I was sailing on a tall ship. We were celebrating Columbus. And we used to go to this bar in Old Town Alexandria, and I know 4 and a half. You would think, you don't milk. In this case, though, it was light beer, because they didn't want to give me like regular beer. So the rest of the crew taught me how to drink, and I learned a very good lesson there, that sometimes bending the rules is good, because what it taught me was that I didn't learn about binge drinking. I learned from people who were older than me, in their 30s, 26, 27 years older, that there was a right way to drink. By the time I reached 6, I had graduated from college. I know, you're dumbstruck. I had graduated, and for the next 5 years, I have operated my entire career and lived it. I served an entire career in 5 years. I know what we all like, especially in the military. You feel like, how does this work? You get those days where you feel like your 8-hour day is 40 hours or 32 hours? Does that happen to anybody? You just get home and you're like, God, I can't believe how long this day was. That's how long my days have been. I lived 20 years in 5 years. It was amazing. But I will give you 3 specific instances that really have helped define me. The first was in December of 2009. I was working mobilization with the Army, That's bringing reservists on the active duty. And we were having a hard time getting people their orders. So we had them at Fort Bragg, and we were trying to get them into Afghanistan. And we couldn't get their orders to stay. We couldn't get their orders to stay. And finally, my boss comes back to the office, and he's up in arms. He's like, I can't believe this. The G1, the administrative officer, they're having a bake sale. I want to have a bake sale. We can't get ordered to send people to combat because they're selling brownies and chocolate chip cookies. I learned then and there that you have to worry about priorities. The cookies could not wait for lunch. The war, 12 years later, could wait a day. The second lesson I learned with the Army was that life-changing events usually are never planned. This comes back to volleyball. I was a big volleyball player. At this point, I was 7.5 years old. I couldn't spike the ball, but I enjoyed the camaraderie of getting out there on a pickup volleyball game. So I found this great little restaurant. Didn't drink because it's a bar restaurant. I couldn't drink at that point, at least legally. And I would play pickup volleyball, but eventually this place closed. Why? Because the adults, figures, would get into fights. So the bar closed down. So I had to find a place. So I got online. I got on Yahoo Chats and AOL because that's what they had at the time. And I started talking to this girl. Now, I know what you're thinking. She's robbing the cradle. It's true. But I'm that good looking, and I'm really that good a person. So she didn't mind. I asked her where I could play volleyball. And that conversation led to jazz, eventually led to getting married, having 4 kids, and moving on in life. And the last issue was at NPS, when I came out here to be stationed, I moved on, and I had a golf ball at a golf tournament hit me. It hit me and then bounced from out of bounds back in bounds. The player came up to me and congratulated me, thanked me. Did you know where my ball went? Yeah, it's right there. He's, thank you very much. After the game, he bought me a beer. Little did he know I was only 11 years old. In conclusion, and what that taught me was you have to be in the right place at the right time to get what you need. But sometimes, again, you don't know when that is. In conclusion, though, what I found was that when you enter childhood, you never know what's going to happen. In my case, my life is defined by my birthday, February 29th, 1968. I only have a birthday every 4 years.